Good afternoon, everybody. It is Friday, which means that Shift is hosting another edition of our office hours. I am Sarah Mayer, a partner at Shift, and with me is Cynthia Closkey, also a partner. Say hi.
Hi.
Thank you for singing it like I did. I appreciate it.
Should this be the all singing, all dancing episode of
I
Office
would be
Hours?
I would be all on board with that. I've been decorating. It's December, and some people decorate things in December, and I've been humming show tunes and lots of Wizard of Oz for some reason. I don't know, during the holidays that particular movie is just part of
I
my.
think it seems like when I was young, they used to show that at Christmas time, that they
Did
would
they?
show the Wizard of Oz. I think
Okay.
so.
Well, they definitely show, Sound of Music during
Yeah.
the holidays. That is definitely so. I sort of vacillate between Wizard of Oz and Sound of Music, humming and singing, and then I put my dog's name in the songs, and then my husband's in the other room chuckling as I'm singing, and my son's super confused about what's going on. But anyway, that's me. That's my weird world.
Sounds fun. Sounds perfect.
But that is not what we're here to discuss today.
No. We're here to talk about marketing and communications, advertising.
Yeah, we sure are. And what we would love for any of those watching is to submit your own questions about marketing and communications for us to answer. Cynthia and I will answer those questions, and you can drop those right into the chat here in YouTube. You can also email us questions. We may not get to those questions this week, but we can certainly answer them in a future week. And so if you have questions that are maybe too long for the chat per se, you could email those to officehours@shiftcollaborative.com. So we're switching things up over the last 2 weeks. We normally start with kind of like in the news, what's happening, around the marketing world this past week. But we're going to do that. We're just going to do it at the end. And we're just going to get kind of right into our topic that we have lined up to talk about today, which is designing
Which
things.
is, yes, logo trends for 2021, which
That's
is
right.
almost here.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of people, perhaps maybe a lot of small business owners, even large corporations, they don't really think about logo trends. Once they have their logo, they're like, okay, we have our logo. We are done. But it's important to, I think about, looking at your logo with fresh eyes. I don't know what the right time, frame is for doing that, but they come out with these logo trends pretty much every year. And so it's a good time to maybe take stock.
Yeah, and it's a little bit about, in some ways they're saying this is what we predict will happen next year, but also it's saying these are the things that have been going on and the directions from really this year. So it's almost, you can almost think of it as more of a summary of what's been going on. And
Sure.
so they had three major sort of trend areas, I think, in this. The first one, simplistic geometry. And actually we have an example from that. But do you want to talk about it while I pull that up?
Yeah. Well, they also talked about Google's recent icon refresh, which we've talked about on prior office hours. That's been kind of a topic for us, just paying attention to it. So that's one example, and we've given that example before. But this one, for Medium, I thought it was interesting to try to look at what they've done to 2020 for their logo, following this kind of trend, but just seeing the kind of evolution of their logo in a not so short span of time. It's changed. 2015 they went completely off the normal path for them. They introduced color. They kind of went in this whole other direction, but as any logo refresh or redesign or complete rebrand, the 2021 is getting a lot of criticism in some cases. There's a tweet in that article. I don't know if you want to go back to it. It's kind of funny.
Let me see if I can find the tweet. I'm having a little bit of trouble spotting it though.
Oh, well, I think you might have to scroll down in the article itself. I can't remember exactly where it is, but
Okay.
It's
Go ahead.
like I was just going to say, it's just, I think one sort of talking about the symbolism of the circles, where it starts out large and then squeezes smaller. There was a sort of connection made to what Medium does to authors
Oh,
and how they pay
okay.
them.
Yeah, maybe in your version of the article, it's a little bit different. Maybe I'm just seeing a summary of the article, but because I'm not seeing the tweet. But I was kind of wondering what do they mean by that? Is it? I mean, one is big, one is small, and the medium is the middle one. Is that what it is? Or
That's an interpretation. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. And I can pull up the article too, just to see if I can remember if I have the non-summary version. No, I don't. I have to sign in.
well,
But
that's
yeah, I
fine.
mean,
But I think that the point is that people are logos are, as we've said so many times, logo changes are disruptive, and people seem like they resist them in a variety of different ways. So what I'm curious about is what Medium is hoping is going to happen with this change. But they're definitely part of this whole sort of clean lines, very simple things, less of that. We're seeing less of that skeuomorphism kind of thing where things look like real things in the reality, like their sort of origami version from 2015. That sort of has a I know their shapes, but it has this dimensionality that seems not to be what people are going for right now.
that's right. Well, I think the important maybe part of this particular trend is less about the geometry and more about the simplistic side of it is you know, and when we think about the Google changes, I think they are trying to perhaps simplify that design a little bit and also unify it across all of their sub brands and icons. I mean, they all now look the same, which good or bad, depending on how you look at it. I know for me, I have to really think a little bit more what I'm pressing because what I used to look for is no longer there. But that could
That's
just be
interesting.
time.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've caught on to it now. Like certainly on my phone, I feel like they make more sense to me, the different logos. And then on the tabs, on the computer, I feel like I'm getting there. So,
yeah, I think I go and the little 9 dots or whatever, I click on it, they all the icons look the same. And so I just have to kind of remember where is the calendar one, because it's not jumping out at me like it used to. So it does take me some extra, like a half a second. It's not a crazy thing, but it's a change.
Right.
So that was one of the trends. Second trend that they talked about in that article was modern symbolism. And so, as they say here, symbolism is really not a new thing. Logo design is has its roots in that. So that's not new, but the ability to utilize symbols to kind of tell the story is really important when it comes to a logo. If you're going to use a symbol with it, right? Like it shouldn't just be 3 dots for the sake of 3 dots. That's in that
Right.
prior one.
I mean, I think there's different opinions. A logo comes to mean whatever you say it means, eventually. Oh, my light has changed. My poor light. A logo means it means what you are over time. Like it acquires the value of the brand over time, and people start to recognize it. So I think sometimes people put too much emphasis on the symbolism of the logo to the exclusion of other things, and it makes it hard. But if you can make it work, I think it's a great thing, and it seems like the symbolism is important right now. They're referencing, for example, this rainbows ad from Amazon.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see if we can put that up. Oh. She's even got a little rainbow dress.
Yeah, I know.
cute.
It's super cute. Yeah. And I think that the thing with the symbolism is that was not an abstract concept she was trying to convey. It was clear that it was a rainbow and that it, meant something positive and warm and welcoming. And so that's why it worked.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Very cute.
Mm-hmm.
And, in the current time, maybe there's so much complexity in our world, we're looking for simplicity, and maybe that's part of why this is awesome.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And then the third one is authentic portraiture and representation, which is,
And
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go.
I was just going to say, it's an important thing in general. It's very important in 2020. I think that we all saw some of the sort of iconic brands moving away from their symbols like Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben's, kind of rethinking their mascots and what pain that might be causing or have caused. And so they kind of archived those images for something else.
Right. This Aunt Jemima one, I believe they're still figuring out, like, what are they going to do? I think they're going to rename the whole line, which, I think you could say is overdue. And Uncle Ben's has switched over to Ben's Original. So Ben is still there somehow in some way, but now he's the original Ben, even though we don't see him. So they're still figuring that out as well. And then of course there's football teams still figuring out what their new names are going to be. And then the branding that will go with that. And I think it's all, in many ways it's moving similar to that, the simplicity that the other trends are talking about, like simpler is better right now.
Right. Yeah. But you can see how hard it is to make sort of a pivot or a change in a brand that's been around for a very long time, that has been adopted by the marketplace, that people do recognize. So there's this, there's a decision to be made that we have to move away with that. That's fine. That decision is made, but then just to do the right thing by it moving forward is not as easy as just removing something, it's like starting from scratch.
Absolutely.
So yeah, those are interesting trends. What do you think about them on the whole?
I think those are good. Those are interesting to see. The ongoing challenge in any kind of logo design, when you say that there's trends, you want to be modern if you're designing something, but you don't necessarily want to look like everybody else. And so that, I think, is going to be the thing. If we can spot a trend in logos, maybe that means now we need to do another thing. So there's always this, how do you keep ahead? How do you do something that's original? And how do you do something that's really authentic to the brand that you're representing, as opposed to just current and now and whatever?
Right. Yeah, that is always the struggle with it. So, sorry.
So you're being haunted there.
I am. My son's decided he wants to join my live stream. It's like that anchor man whose children come rolling in. It's really not that bad.
That's right.
Yeah. But anyway, I had to have my version of it.
There's your moment. Yes.
Yeah.
We'll go viral any minute now. So I think that looking into next year, I wonder whether, I'm looking forward to seeing what other new things come in. There's always the color trends that people, maybe pretty soon now, Pantone will be saying what's their color of the year. And so those things are there, and they're part of what characterize a given year, and let us say, oh yeah, that's what was going on then. And so right now, this need for simplicity, I think, is part of this all. Just we're overwhelmed by all the different things going on, and
overloaded.
Happy for things to be sort of simpler, as well as the technology side of it. A simpler design is easier to recognize on different size screens. So that, I think, probably is playing in as well.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. And it's always interesting to watch how things evolve over time, and which large brands decide to make changes in why in that particular year. So you could, look at that Medium screenshot and you could see which years they made those changes and think about like, well, what was going on in that year? Was something, why did they make that change? So, it's just interesting. And we have the study of brands, I guess, because of that, those
Exactly.
kinds of changes.
It gives people something to write their thesis about.
That's right. All right. So that wraps up that piece of it. And then I thought we could talk. I found this article. I get this great newsletter every week? I don't know. UX Booth. I get it once a week, I believe. And they put a lot of really great articles about, interaction design, user experience, UX, just the whole experience of design. And so this article that we're going to talk a little bit about now is kind of a high level key takeaway of the book Universal Principles of Design, and what this particular writer, Jake, finds that, to be big sort of interesting things. And we find them to be interesting as well to talk about. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought this was a great article. I really liked also the examples that he was giving and the ways he was explaining what these different principles are. So the first one, this signal to noise ratio, that really good design is taking away the stuff that isn't necessary and keeping the things that you do need. And frankly, this is also the same with, clear writing or any kind of thing that you're, physical design or print design, any of those things, like trimming things down to the minimum, which is, part of this, I think, this sort of 21st century kind of direction, going away from like a Baroque or, Rococo or, over the top kind of a design, which probably will come back. Mm-hmm. Yeah. At some point, I imagine the pendulum will swing back the other way.
Mm-hmm. Yes, as it always does.
Yeah, at least for decor.
Yeah, for also fashion, all sorts of things come full circle again. But yeah, I think this is he mentions or quotes something that I think we've probably heard as people in the design world, but maybe others haven't, which is good design is invisible. Mm-hmm. And it's credited to two different people, but Don Norman and also Jared Spool. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of really highlights this particular principle pretty well. And it's something that's not easy to do. It's not easy to do. It's easier to clutter up your design and put everything that you heard the client say they wanted to communicate on there. So I think it's an easy thing to do, unfortunately.
The more that you trim, it's more than just sort of taking things out, because just removing things and coming up with something very white, or clear or whatever, can then make it feel undesigned as well. So there's sort of a balance to be achieved. Right. And so, for example, like in this table that he's giving here, there's this slight, little bit of background and this is a row and this is a row, and just that little bit in there does something. And if that weren't there, if it was just plain, it would be under designed. So it's finding that right.
Yeah. Hence the ratio.
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think this is I'm glad that he pointed this one out. I think this is a really important one, and one that I feel like anybody can spot it, the bad signal to noise ratio out there in the real world. I think a lot of menus or posters where you've got just everything you can imagine on there. So you can't really see what is the thing that what is the piece of information that I really, really need. I have to really look for it and really find it. And that's unfortunate, but we see it so much. Signs, I see it so much, cluttered signs, when it's like a billboard. It needs to be as simple as possible, but
I think PowerPoint templates that are too messy, or brochures, just more elements than you need, and then people don't know where to look. The design is not guiding you to the right place.
Yeah, it's not helping emphasize the copy either. So
exactly right. So that's principle one, and principle two, performance load. So this one I think about it particularly with regard to user experience. That if good design for a website, for example, the more that we are able to make it so that it's harder to make a mistake. You know what I mean? You don't have to try quite so hard.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what the sort of school book definition of this one is making something needlessly complex. And I think we all do this sometimes without even realizing it. You know, you want to do something really, really well, so you're trying to take everything into consideration, and maybe you just add too much to it, or you make the steps too complex, or whatever it is, and really kind of the end user suffers from that pretty significantly, and asks too much of them, and they can't figure out what they're supposed to do first or second, or whatever the case may be. They don't understand. So
Right.
It's bad. But there are two types, according to this book, of performance load, which are cognitive and kinematic. Did I say that right?
I think so.
Okay.
That's how I would have said
I imagine it to be like cinematic, but with a K. So it's a hard kinematic. But so the cognitive is the amount of mental activity required to accomplish a goal. So that makes sense. And then the kinematic load is more physical. The number of steps or movements it takes to accomplish that goal, required to accomplish that goal. So yeah.
And the cognitive load one, that kind of fits in with that thing that we so often say, that it's better to be clear than to be clever. Like if you're making people figure a thing out, that's fun in video games, it's not fun in websites. So it depends on your purposes, but if you're trying to help people do something, then reducing the number of times they have to guess or like try to learn how to use your thing, the better. And then the kinematic load, I think, ties toward, for example, in the web, how many clicks does it take to get somewhere, or how much do I have to scroll, or how much do I have to do, even if it's not really physical. It's still steps that need to get taken. So if I have to search through something, and keep looking around, then that's when people give up, because it's been too much effort.
Right. Same with like a shopping cart experience. If there's too many steps and anything is confusing along the way, people will abandon the cart, and you won't make that sale. So that's not what you want.
Right. And I think that applies, to all kinds of different things too, like just kind of what we're saying with writing and everything. All of these things can be designed. So
yeah, they do reference one of your favorites. I don't know if you saw that. It's right above proximity, but they referenced Steve Kruger's "Don't Make Me Think"
He really is
book.
my favorite too. Yes.
Yeah.
The "Don't Make Me Think" book and website, which we cite all the time. And if anyone is doing anything with websites, I highly, highly recommend getting this book here. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yes. 3rd edition. They're on the 3rd edition.
Yeah. So then proximity. Now this is one, I actually think business cards and all sorts of things, like pretty much all kinds of visual design. This is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. I do. I love his little examples for each of these. I think they really highlight without saying anything, which is he's doing a good design job. But yeah, so this one, very straightforward. Elements that are sort of too close together are perceived to be more related than those elements that might be farther apart. So,
and then they has this good example here. I can blow this up a little bit more so you can see. So this is a YouTube screen.
Yeah, so they break down the different parts of, and I don't have the article open, but everything is chunked. And I think one of the main pieces of this is like the subscribe button, for example, is like overlaid over the video to explain like this happens while like you press this while you're viewing, or you can press it while you're viewing. It's something, having to do with what you're viewing right now. So they're putting that in proximity of the content that you're viewing, which makes a lot of sense.
Right. And then over here, we've got, other related videos and I can't think of his name at the second, but you could say these are small multiples in that they, you can see that they go together with each other and repeat. And, it's just, very, you can tell right away what's going on there. And then this one is separated out a little bit. Why is that? And, it's the one that would get autoplayed if you were, that one's a little bit separate from the other. And then these up here, this is an ad. So it's a whole other little section. So those tiny little spaces make a big difference.
Right. In the background, I think of the ad is where you see a transition, like a light gray, right? If I'm seeing it correctly.
Just a tiny little bit, I think. There's a little gray line right there.
Yeah. So interesting stuff. Proximity.
Yes. So now how do I get out of this? There we go.
Okay. Yeah. And it goes through kind of all the steps of it. And we have this article shared in the description of this live stream, so you can check it out for yourself, of course. The last principle that he decided to pull out and talk about is iteration. I think we kind of all know what this means, but just to read off what they have here, it's repeating a set of operations until, a specific result is achieved. Which, is a concept that's extremely fundamental to good design and getting to good design, but also something that, we apply, a principle that we apply to other areas of our work and, like research and writing. You don't go with your first draft. Very rarely. That's not what you turn in. So yeah, and iteration is really important.
Yeah. The more that you do something that you're able to you can step back, you can look at it, you can see what's working and what's not. So trying different things, trying different versions. Don't always go with your first solution. Like that to us, and I think we've made it a discipline at Shift when we're trying to come up with a creative idea. Our first idea, we might be like, oh, that's perfect. But then it's good to spend a minute and just say, well, okay, that one's good, and let's write that down. And then are there other ones that and just to keep trying, because it may. I think of it almost like in math, there's like a local like peak, but if we try a little farther, we might find a better peak, get something even better. And you won't know if you don't take the extra steps.
Right. You have to. And I think what he says here too is, a thing he did that all maybe junior designers do is they iterate in the same artboard. So you're not seeing the actual iteration in a way that you can sort of pull back from it and say, oh, okay, I see why that didn't work. I see why this does work. If you're overwriting, I guess the changes that you're making, you really don't have that historical view, and you can't, you're not really truly iterating, I guess. And the other thing that I think is really important and that takes, I think, a little bit of fearlessness is to be bold in some of the things that you iterate. Like, don't be afraid to take risks, go really, really big, go really, really small, or use, very vibrant colors that maybe you wouldn't normally use for this particular context. Like, just put everything out there. And then as you're kind of looking at those iterations side by side, you're able to, really the answer should kind of call out to you in a way.
That's right. That's why it can be useful to have those, have little tools like like a prompt book, or like an idea book or something that will, where you flip it open to a random page and it'll say, try, like you just said, contrast, try making the contrast even greater. And it pushes you, it kind of nudges you into going beyond what was obvious or the simple little solution to something that could suck or it could be awesome, but you won't know until you try it.
I think it's also good for proof, I guess is the word I'm looking for. A lot of times when we're presenting a solution to a client, we don't show them every little single thing that we did. We show them some stuff because we want them to understand how we arrived at where we arrived. But they'll often ask, did you try this? Did you try that? And it's good to say, yep, we did. And here, here's how that looked. And here's why that didn't work. So you have evidence, and not like you need evidence, in a bad way. It's a good thing. And you can have conversations with your client about why something didn't work, so that, it's a good educational moment. And then that's something that kind of gets in a way maybe adopt it into like the brand styles. Like we don't do it this way. It's not going to work this way. So we don't have to try that again that way. We know it won't work.
It's kind of along with what you're saying there. It's allowing you to have confidence in the success and the reasons behind the design that you eventually land on.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a really useful and important thing to practice is to make sure that you're really seeing all the variations as opposed to just tweaking in space. So they there's a whole bunch of other principles in this book that they mentioned, this universal principles of design, but well worth taking a look at that. So we've actually given several different book reviews or book recommendations just in time for Christmas.
That's right. But yeah, there's a lot, 125, I think the article said, in terms of the number of principles there. So lots of, if you're a designer just starting out in design, it seems like a worthwhile thing to add to your list or purchase on your own.
Right. And if you are not just starting out, maybe it's an opportunity to kind of refresh and sort of regain some energy. So
yeah, absolutely.
I'll mention that on my Christmas list this year.
Yeah. I just updated my Amazon wish list, so need to add that as well. Cool. Well, that was our feature. I can sort of break in and say if you have any questions out there, you know, as normal, you can live chat those in. But if you're watching this after the fact, the recording that we put out, you can always email us any questions that you might have about anything, not just about the topics that we just talked about today and discussed, but you can email that to officehours@shiftcollaborative.com. We'd love to get those questions and see what all is on your minds and what you're dealing with and what challenges you're facing. And if we can help in any way, that's why we do this each week.
Absolutely. All right, so let's talk a little bit about news and things we saw. And in particular, right now, of course, it is the it's the fourth quarter. It's the time of year when there are ads. Ads are all the rage. Yes. And so you were mentioning that you had seen a new ad from Apple. Let me see if I can get that to show up here.
Yeah. This is, Apple always incorporates really great music, really, music that is so fun and catchy. You go and download that song, but they're featuring an artist and they're featuring a particular product. They're Mini, and it's kind of it's a cool commercial. It's a little bit weird in my opinion. It stands out in a way, but we can watch it and you see what you think.
Okay.
The sound is not, I don't think.
Can you hear the sound?
Mm-mm.
Can't hear the sound. I can hear the sound. Let me see. Because it's because I'm wearing my Apple product ear things. Can you hear it now?
More. I can hear it better. A little bit.
Oh, look, there she's got them right there.
Mm-hmm.
Hey Siri, turn it way up. You know that. You way too soft and so wet. Bunch of ideas and no pad. Get too busy trying to please others. Mama ain't raised no sucker. Wanna be judged, I just wanna be me. Even though we buy things, we just wanna be me. Wanna be judged, I just wanna be me. We just wanna be me.
It's a long commercial.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole, I think it's the whole song, and I love the song. And I have two minis on their
Really?
way here eventually.
Mm.
So feel very in tune with this, if you're part of that Apple ecosystem, like I've been buying into.
Yeah. I
Very
guess
cool.
it's just funny that like, yeah, she has like a little mini in the
A mini me.
mini me, and they're, singing to each other and
Mhm.
interacting. And then she makes the like fake turtle a real turtle. And then she like ends up putting that turtle in like a little, like box with a mirror ball going. And I don't know, it's just like, there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And I thought that the scarf at the beginning that kept getting longer and longer was interesting.
Yeah.
too.
So
And
what is Apple doing with these ads? I mean, is it they're associating themselves with the new performers? Are they, I mean, what are they trying to say with this?
mhm. I think that they're taking everything into context, right? It's like, this is a product. What would represent this product well? The kind of interaction, the kind of artist that might rep the product in a really good way. And I do think, obviously, because Apple is has iTunes, and music is a huge part of their world, that's part of what's important with any of their commercials these
Mhm.
days.
Mhm. There's a couple things
Yeah.
as far as the product itself that they're featuring. So here,
Mhm.
this is the current Apple home device, which I have one of, and it's new. I'm new to it. So when I walk into my apartment, I have it set to turn on certain lights, and you can have it when you arrive, set a, what they call a scene, and you can turn on lights, you can turn on music, and you can choose which thing it's going to do. I have it when, at 6 o'clock in the morning, when my alarm goes off as usual, but also lights go on in certain rooms of the house so that I can get things done. So I don't
Yeah.
have to, it's like very Star Trek.
Mhm.
So they show that a little bit when she walks in, the things all start. And then they're kind of featuring the fact that this current one explodes and becomes the little mini one. And then of course the mini girl with these amazing pants that I now need, by the way.
I know.
This is so awesome. But I love her. So the magicality of the device is reflected, I think, in the magicality
Right.
of what they're trying to do here. So it's a nice kind of product placement, though, where, I mean, you talked about like good design is simple. They're really pushing that with these devices, I think.
Yeah. I think, well done. I like it. Makes
Yeah,
you
good choice.
stop.
I'm glad you chose that. Yeah, it does make you think. I mean, it's very, I used to wonder, like, what are they going to do with music videos next? Because there was a time when you would see the band play and you would look around on
Yeah.
them, and that kind of would feel like an old thing. Now here, there's so much storytelling going on in the way that music videos have evolved. And in this case, though, it really fits in with the music and then this overall story of being sad, but then finding some joy as well, I
Some
guess.
joy, right? Yeah, which is also sort of reflective of this year that we're having. We have some, some down moments, but there's still happy, positive moments where one can find joy as well. We have to remember that, and Apple's maybe trying to remind us.
Yeah, absolutely. And saying that they can be part of it.
Yeah, please bring us into your home. We'll make you happy. And then the next ad is, I'm a fan of Ryan Reynolds as he's Deadpool, if those watching are not aware. He's a lot of other characters as well, but that's one that springs to my mind. And he is part of an ad agency.
This was
called.
news to me. I hadn't realized that.
Oh, really? Yeah. Like all of his aviation gin stuff. And he's been a part of some other brands commercial. Anyway, it's all part of his agency that's called Maximum Effort, I believe is the name of the agency. So this is an ad for Match.com, which if you have been living under a rock, it is a dating app. It's actually how I met my husband. And when they first started rolling out ads, however many years ago, they would bring real couples in that had met through a match and put them on a couch and, interview them and talk. And so this commercial we're about to show is not that, but there's a follow-up commercial to this commercial that is that couch one. So I don't know that we're playing both. So I just wanted to mention the second one.
If they're good, maybe we will.
Yeah.
Hi. 2020. Please. Call me 2020. See what you found. Oh. What's up? We are saving up and feeling so long. I keep waiting for you, but you never promised this in my head. I want to make email to
That's fun.
The obligatory dumpster fire that is 2020.
Yeah. I thought that was a good choice. And I think that the movie that was on was Deadpool or one of the Deadpool movies. Do you think in the movie theater that they were in?
You know what? I would have to watch it again. You might be right. I didn't pay attention as I was trying to figure out what she was holding. And I was very focused on, he would offer her popcorn at that moment and she went like, I don't know. Anyway. But that would make sense.
Maybe we won't watch the whole next one, although I'm sure it's funny, but I can see now. So they've got the like you said, the classic, the classic Match.com movie with Satan and the year that we're currently still living through.
We're almost out of, but still in. Yes.
So that's fun. So what do you think about, so for Match.com, I mean, I think most of what they're trying to do here is have people remember that they're there. Because there's a lot, they used to be the only game in town as far as dating apps go. And now, of course, there's a lot of other ones. And so I think they're trying to, let particularly a younger audience maybe realize that they're still worth using.
Yeah, they, I happened to be watching Match and learning about it because my husband actually just invested in a competitor. A friend of ours is starting a dating app. And so I've been kind of looking at what they've been doing and how they have been trying to reach that younger audience. They started video dating. They offer that through the app, which, now you really need that as a part of the stay-at-home sort of not going to restaurants or coffee shops. So to meet people. So they've launched that kind of a product. And I didn't realize this, but they own a bunch of those other dating apps.
I didn't know that either. Okay.
Yeah, they like, it's almost a monopoly. So the ones that Match doesn't own are few.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, is that then the policy, like kind of like the Gap strategy, where you've got Old Navy and then you graduate from Old Navy to Gap, and you graduate from Gap to Banana Republic, or there's kind of like a through line?
Yeah, there's different audiences. I think different, dating isn't sort of homogenous and cuts across all sorts of different things. So yeah, it does have, each of those apps has sort of different audiences in mind and different kind of types of relationships, I will say. very broadly.
Sure. Okay. Maybe we'll just leave that one where it is.
Leave that one where that is. Yes. So yeah.
Yes, that's
And-
interesting then to see what they're doing, what they're playing with, and where they're heading.
Yes.
And how much they're investing money-wise into it, which seems like kind of a lot.
Yeah, I mean, they're huge. Like I said, they own all of these other companies, so they're huge in the game, the dating game, if you will. So I think they can afford it, but they are spending. And the next one is not an ad, but a public service announcement. But just as important, and I think that we need to remember during this time of year that it's not all about the paid advertisement type products placements, but we have to remember all of the great organizations doing work all the time, but really kind of having to step up in 2020. So this is one from American Red Cross.
We have an ad before our ad.
Yeah.
It's a great ad.
Poignant
The
in
slow
that song.
reveal to it, yeah, so much great storytelling in a very short period of time, and then the emotion from, well, partly from the speed of the movement and the actions of the people, but also from the music as well. A well chosen classic pop piece.
Yeah, very much so. And they have another version of it, which is a bunch of music stars singing the full song with additional imagery and similar to the ad, but it's really, really great too. And then you get the full song as well. So you can hear that full, and then that song will be stuck in your head as it is mine. Not a bad song to have stuck in your head, but
that's right. So that's key to a pop hit. So
yeah,
very cool. So this again, I think we're going to see a lot more ads in the next couple of weeks. It'll be interesting to see whether the football season seems like it's still going to happen, and maybe people are going to be investing. Companies are going to invest even more in the ads for the Super Bowl. So this is definitely a big time for keeping an eye out for inspiring ads in a whole bunch of different directions.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had a viewer just to let everyone know that song, What the World Needs Now, is by Burt Bacharach. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did. Yeah.
It's a name. It's got a lot of vowels in it.
Burt Bacharach.
But yeah, yes. So thank you for letting us know, David. So yeah, I mean, I think that in some cases, certain brands will sort of link together their fourth quarter ads with what they're going to do in the Super Bowl. Some, not always, but kind of using these moments where they have a lot of money invested, therefore a lot of visibility, and so they can tell that story over time if they want. And then kind of the gap between holiday and Super Bowl, they can fill that with social media stuff and kind of really bridge together these two moments, advertising sort of Super Bowls, if you will.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Next in the news
is something that I think it's part of our technology world. It's certainly part of our work from home world, and that is the acquisition coming up of Salesforce purchasing Slack. So of course we Shift is a big user of Slack, and a medium user of Salesforce, in the sense that our clients are users of Salesforce.
Yeah.
So what do we know about this acquisition?
Well, we know a few things. The dollar amount in which they are plopping down. Salesforce is plopping down 27.7 billion. I'm sure Slack is doing a bit of celebration over that. It's a really, I think, big acquisition amount.
Particularly
And
for a company that does not make a profit.
yeah. So I don't know, famously Slack put an ad, an op-ed, an article, something really taking aim at, when it first started, taking aim at Microsoft Teams. Is it Teams, their product? Yeah. And basically saying we're coming for you and whatnot. And, Microsoft Teams has something like over 100 million users, and Slack is at, I don't know, I might say somewhere in here with the number of 12 million daily active users. So like Slack is still not as big as Microsoft Teams, but it's still getting acquired.
Mm-hmm.
Slack is not as big. Yeah, I don't know if I said that the right way.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So.
Microsoft, throughout its whole history has had people. It has fought off competition in a variety of ways that seem legal and illegal, but one of their major strengths all along has been just this massive user base, because every time they roll out a new version of the operating system, they can package a whole bunch of other stuff in there with it. And so so they've really they're will continue to looked for a little while, like maybe that was going to get split, shut down a little bit, but they continue to innovate and to come up with new products and to kind of keep up with things. So they're going to continue to be a force to reckon with. But Slack and Salesforce working together here are kind of creating maybe a more complete package to battle with that. So for whatever reasons you're not in the Microsoft world, you have other options, and Salesforce has some pretty good penetration for its various offerings too.
Right. Yeah, and I think that Salesforce had and I don't know if they're going to be getting rid of it now. They have something inside of its product called, I think it's called Chatter. Okay. It's some of our clients have been talking about, we could use Chatter to have our members have an insular community inside of Salesforce and talk to each other. So it's basically Slack. And so my guess is that the Chatter might be going away and be replaced with Slack if you are a Salesforce user.
Mm-hmm. That probably makes sense, or they'll find some way to I don't know that they'll merge the teams, but I'm sure that there's other things that those folks can do. So it does make sense if they're making this major purchase. Imagine they're going to use it. They're not just going to shut it down
in their product. Yeah, for sure. So that's interesting and big news. And I guess we pay attention to that because we're pro Slack.
Yeah, well, it has become kind of fundamental to the way that we work within our teams. And just kind of keep our company going when we are far apart.
That's right. So that's that news. And I just put a little last bit of thing, just, I don't know, I just kind of caught my attention, that the announcement that Warner Brothers is going to be releasing its 2021 films through HBO Max. And I think I read an article around kind of that HBO Max has been struggling to compete with, the big streaming services like Netflix and Amazon Prime and Disney Plus. And so this will certainly, I would think, boost them beyond where they are today and give them the kind of, user base perhaps that they're looking for. And so I think it's interesting. And also, it kind of sets a precedent for the future. We can't really go to movie theaters right now, but there may come a day, hopefully, that we can go to them again. But will people now be used to getting their movies this way and no longer want to go to the movie theater? How might this change future movie going experiences?
Yeah, I mean the theater experience had already been changing over time before the pandemic, before, when we were still allowed to go to these things. And what it seems like the where you have to what they've been drifting toward, what is more successful is when going to the movies is more than just going to the movies, when it becomes a full experience, so that you're hanging out with people who don't necessarily live in your home with you. And there are places like the Alamo Draft House is a famous one down in Texas, where there's like there's more to going to the movies. So you combine the dinner and the movie and the whole thing all in one great big experience. Because after a while, and I think we're all feeling this acutely right now, you're tired of being at home. Just even though, so your trade-off there is, at home you've got all your things, you can pause your movie and hit the restroom if you need to without missing anything. You don't have to worry about someone eating noisily next to you, unless it's someone that you actually live with, in which case you can yell at them about it, all of those things. And yet, when this was announced, I follow the director Edgar Wright of what's his name, Shaun of the Dead and other movies. So I follow him on Twitter, and he tweeted about times when you in a movie theater, when you're in a packed house, and it's the best experience in the world. So he was citing, and this is a little, hopefully not too much of a spoiler alert for folks, but in the movie Fatal Attraction, the wife character says something to the Glenn Close character, and everybody cheered, and so then he had other people writing and responding and saying, I remember this experience when I was at the movie theater, like in Aliens, too, like, get away from her, those experiences where the whole audience is cheering, or you're all feeling it together.
Yeah, collective emotion. And that's happened in movies I can recall in my lifetime. Harry Potter movies and Star Wars movies. Those two famously have group gasps. You're all like, well, or yay, or cheering, or just like really happy when a particular character overcomes a big obstacle or comes onto the screen for the first time and you haven't seen them in a really, really long time, or something like that. So yeah, I think you miss out on those opportunities. I really personally miss going to the movies. It's something that I started as just a me time thing with my son when he was very, very, very young. The first movie that we saw was Toy Story 2. And, it was just such a great experience, and we just kind of continued that, and any movie that would release that was in the right age range for him, we would go see it the weekend it came out or very soon after. So I really do miss that. But on the flip side, I do find my new viewing experience pretty comfortable. Like you say, you can pause it, you can rewind, you look at something again if somebody was talking, like there's just lots of flexibility in your viewing experience, I guess.
Right. I think I hope that there will be a business model that works for cinemas. And, I can also think of like classic movies that I've enjoyed seeing on a big screen, and that's a whole different experience. Yeah. So hopefully that there will be a business model for that. But right now, for the near term, I don't know how, there's going to be a lot of theaters that close, and it's almost like that whole industry is going to need to pick itself up again.
Yeah. And really small, like mom and pop independent theaters that add something to the scene that you can't get from the large corporations. And there's the theater that I grew up in my hometown with. I grew up in Oakmont, and it's called the Oaks, and the Oaks Theater. And they play movies like you would expect, but they also have concerts, and they have like poetry readings, and they just have this diverse amount of programming that you can't get anywhere else. And so it'll be a tragedy to see anything like that closing through this.
Yep, absolutely. Well, that's a sad note to sort of end.
I know. I'm sorry.
I
didn't
have to
mean
say,
to.
I'm currently subscribing to HBO Max and watching. I think it's his Dark Materials I'm watching on there. Maybe that's on Amazon Prime. There's something
That's
I'm
on
watching on
Amazon
HBO.
Prime.
Is it?
I've seen it.
Well, I can't think what it is that I'm watching, but there's something I'm watching. And then I've also been on Disney Plus because The Mandalorian and
Yep.
our friend Grogu.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really enjoying the streaming services a lot, and I'm glad that they're kind of helping us through this challenging time.
Absolutely. Ditto. I echo that. Well, that's a more positive note to end on. So thanks everybody for checking us out today. Again, we come back on Fridays to answer your questions. So we'll see you here next Friday. And in the meantime, feel free to email us questions at officehours@shiftcollaborative.com. Have a fabulous weekend.